Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tadodayam Adiraye Nasta Preshu Padreshu Nitya Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatya Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5. We're going to be covering verse 1 to 16, I believe. And so yeah, Vidura's talks with Maitreya. So yeah, Vidura's asking more questions, and Shamkishore, he was talking about how Vidura was kicked out of the palace, of the Hastinapur palace. And yeah, that oftentimes in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's seen that a start of a spiritual journey is either through a loss or an insult or both. So in his case, he was insulted by his own nephew, and yeah, Duryodhana was so harsh that he said that I'll just kick you out and leave only your breath. That because Shankar was saying like, yeah, because you're my uncle, I won't kill you, and I'll just let you go, but with no respect, basically, no prestige. He was the prime minister actually to the king, and anyone know who was Vidura's father? Remember? Yeah, Vidura's father. Yeah, it's Vyasadeva. Yeah. So Vyasadeva was asked by his mother Satyavati to come to the palace because the two kings, well, the two sons of Satyavati had died, Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. And so she had asked her firstborn son from Parashara Muni, which was Vedavyas, to come and to help with basically the progeny, the dynasty to go further. So he came, and then he was there, and with Amba and Ambika, and with the first one, which I don't remember which one was first, but the first one, I guess Pandu was the first one. So Amba, no, actually Dhritarashtra was the first one, right? So he came with, he was there with Amba, and then Amba was just too scared to see this yogi. He just came out of the mountains, so it didn't really look the topmost dating material. And so she saw him, and she was just like so shocked. She just closed her eyes. So that's how they consummated. And so the child that was born was blind, Dhritarashtra. And so the next one, she was told like, don't make the same mistake. Don't close your eyes. She was like, okay, I'm not gonna close my eyes. But she turned really pale, like, oh my God, this is this yogi. And then so Pandu came. Pandu means somebody who's pale. Pandu literally means one who's pale. And also his health was a little frail. And because of that. And so these two sons, and the third time they're gonna send Amba, one of them again. And so she was like, oh, that's enough. So she just brought this maidservant instead, and she was very respectful. So from that maidservant, Vidura was born, and Vidura was this really, sagacious third brother, and he was very saintly, and he was a devotee of Krishna. But since he was born from the maidservant, he was considered a Shudra. He was born out of a Shudrani. But since he was so wise, he was made the prime minister. And he would try to give counsel to Dhritarashtra throughout all those years, like stop this intrigue, stop this politics, stop trying to kill your own nephews. But Dhritarashtra, he would only say one thing, He would say, "What can be done? It's simply providence." It's such a lame answer. It's spiritual bypassing, basically. Like it's all arranged by God. What am I supposed to do? Like you're supposed to stop killing them. That's what you're supposed to do. But he would just keep saying that, and then he would just pass the responsibility to his son Duryodhana, and just, yeah. So he kept saying that. But yeah, but finally for Vidura, like any wise person, it's like when life gives you lemons, you make paneer from the milk. So it's like that, it's like any wise person, whatever life throws at you, you just really have to see how to troubleshoot, right? You can't just, I mean, you can just sit and be sad about it too, but but then you got to do something about it. So Vidura is like he just sees it as his golden opportunity from Krishna. Like, all right, I'm just gonna go on pilgrimage, and he did. He went on pilgrimage, and now he's with Maitreya, and they're having these talks. And then when he gets back, he gives he gives Dhritarashtra the sauce. And he comes back. You're old man, your teeth are falling out, your liver's not working, you're just eating the remnants like a dog from Bhima. And because Bhima especially he killed all their sons on the Kauravas. So he's just like imagine just being fed by the guy who killed all your sons. So it's very harsh and very stern and very cutting. Does anyone know what sadhu means literally? You cut. Be a sadhu, like Radhika Preeti. Cut. All right. Chop, chop. Oh, cutting a false ego. Yep. All right. Yeah. So once you go out the door today, cut them to. I'm just kidding. Lord Chaitanya also sadhu who he cut people's false ego, but with love. So we follow in his footsteps. Yeah. All right. Let's do the translations. You wanna start this side or this side? Okay.
Goswami. Shukadev Goswami said, Vidura, the best among the Kuru dynasty, who was perfect in devotional service to the Lord, thus reached the source of the celestial Ganges river, Hardwar, where Maitreya, the great fathomless learned sage of the world, was seated. Vidura, who was perfect in gentleness and satisfied in transcendence, inquired from him.
Vidura said, O great sage, everyone in this world engages in fruitive activities to attain happiness, but one finds neither satiation nor the mitigation of distress. On the contrary, one is only aggravated with such activities. Please, therefore, give us directions on how one should live for real happiness.
So, just a quick note, Vidura was no ordinary person, of course. And one can see how Vidura has lived his life, through the various stages of life. There's a lot of drama has happened in that royal family. And you see with great devotees that, they just think about things. In the material world, people just do not think simply. They just go through everything. And you can see when you hear from him, it says, everyone in this world engages in fruitive activities to attain happiness, but one finds neither satiation nor the mitigation of distress. Just, imagine him thinking about how everything went through in the royal family. And yeah, he's seen his brother really try to attain happiness, but he was never satiated and his distress was never gone. So as devotees as well, whatever we go through, whatever happened in our life, we want to think of it in a Krishna conscious perspective, use some philosophy and not just go with the flow. So same thing Vidura is doing, like he actually is reflecting back also and saying that he's just speaking from experience actually. That yeah, and just very sincerely asking this question and please give us directions on how one should live for real happiness.
Great philanthropic souls travel on the earth on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to show compassion to the fallen souls who are averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord.
Therefore, O great sage, please give me instruction on the transcendental devotional service of the Lord, so that he who is situated in the heart of everyone can be pleased to impart from within knowledge of the absolute truth in terms of the ancient Vedic principles delivered only to those who are purified by the process of devotional service.
O great sage, kindly narrate how the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the independent, desireless Lord of the three worlds and the controller of all energies, accepts incarnations and creates the cosmic manifestation with perfectly arranged regulative principles for its maintenance.
He lies down on his own heart, spread in the form of the sky, and thus placing the whole creation in that space, he expands himself into many living entities, which are manifested as different species of life. He does not have to endeavor for his maintenance because he is the master of all mystic powers and the proprietor of everything. Thus, he is distinct from the living entities.
May narrate also about the auspicious characteristics of the Lord in his different incarnations for the welfare of the twice born, the cows and the demigods. Our minds are never satisfied completely, although we continuously hear of his transcendental activities.
The Supreme King of all kings has created different planets and places of habitation where living entities are situated in terms of the modes of nature and work, and he has created their different kings and rulers.
Amongst the Brahmanas, please also describe how Narayan, the creator of the universe and the self-sufficient Lord, has differently created the natures, activities, forms, features, and names of the different living creatures.
My lord, I have repeatedly heard about these higher and lower statuses of human society from the mouth of Vyasadeva. I am quite satiated with all these lesser subject matters and their happiness. They have not satisfied me with the nectar of topics about Krishna.
Who in human society can be satisfied without hearing sufficient talk of the Lord, whose lotus feet are the sum total of all places of pilgrimage, and who is worshipped by great sages and devotees? Such topics can cut off one's bondage to family affection simply by entering the holes of one's ears.
Your friend, the great sage Krishna Dvaipayana Vyas, has already described the transcendental qualities of the Lord in his great work, the Mahabharata. But the whole idea is to draw the attention of the massed people to Krsna-katha, Bhagavad Gita, through their strong affinity for hearing mundane topics.
For one who is anxious to engage constantly hearing such topics, Krsna-katha gradually increases his indifference towards all other things. Such constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna by the devotee who has achieved transcendental bliss vanquishes all his miseries without delay.
Persons who, because of their sinful activities, are averse to the topics of transcendence and thus ignorant of the purpose of the Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, are pitied by the pitiable. I also pity them because I see how their duration of life is spoiled by eternal time while they involve themselves in presentations of philosophical speculation, theoretical ultimate goals of life, and different modes of ritual.
O Maitreya, O friend of the distressed, the glories of the Supreme Lord can alone do good for people all over the world. Therefore, just as bees collect honey from flowers, kindly describe the essence of all topics, the topics of the Lord.
Kindly chant all those superhuman transcendental activities of the Supreme Controller, the Personality of Godhead, who accepted incarnations fully equipped with all potency for the full manifestation and maintenance of the cosmic creation.
So yeah, Vidura is saying that he's heard about these, heard about the Mahabharata. He heard the Mahabharata, and he's pointing out that the Mahabharata was originally composed so that people of there's a lot of intrigue, there's a lot of drama, there's politics, people are being killed, there's conspiracy. Who here likes good old conspiracy? especially in America. It's like the land of conspiracies. Um, but yeah, so there's a lot of conspiracy in there, right? So it's written in such a way so that it'll attract the minds of the average person, and hopefully they will come across the Bhagavad Gita, which has the teachings, from Krishna to Arjuna, and of course, even beyond that, and he had composed all this. Vasudev had composed all this, but he was still very depressed. He wasn't very, satisfied. Imagine a writer who writes this huge. I mean, Mahabharata is like the longest epic in the whole world. So it's like you write this huge epic, and you're like, yeah, I don't feel like writing this. Normally, you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get this published on Amazon or whatever, And so they've had this. I'm going to self-publish this. He had this book, but he wasn't happy. And at that point, Narada Muni came in the first canto, and he just, he uses this one word to condemn what Vasudeva has done. And that same word was used in the Mahabharata by Vasudeva to condemn how Abhimanyu was killed. So Abhimanyu was a 16-year-old warrior, Arjuna's son, and he was surrounded by these big warriors like, uh, Dronacharya and so many others from the Kaurava, and they were like at least twice his age, if not thrice or more. And they surrounded him and they just killed this teenager. So that was against the rules of war, actually, not supposed to do that, but they did it. And so the word in the Mahabharata the word that was used is like, this is so condemnable, it's just so atrocious. And so Narada Muni also used that word, that this is so condemnable that you have not glorified Krishna, that you're not talked about Krsna-katha. Because if you think about it, that is Vasudeva's purpose, to really be the literary incarnation and really give something that, you know, uh, prevents people from killing their own souls, So there's the word in the Ishapanishad, right? The killer of soul, I think, right? And so that's what people are doing when they're not really making any progress in spiritual life. They're actually just ruining their own spiritual advancement. And so we can go out there and help that at the Krishna lunch. Are you ruining your own soul? Or do you want to feed your soul? Here's a teacher. Krishna lunch. But so that's why Vidura also is very eager to hear about. He's like, okay, I've heard the Mahabharata, and I pity those who don't understand that the purpose of Mahabharata is to actually hear more about the instructions by Krishna. But I want to hear more. I want to hear the main thing. Anyone remember in Lord Chaitanya's pastime, who was Lord Chaitanya questioning more and more to hear the main substance of Krishna consciousness? Sanatana Goswami also. Yeah. Yeah, and Ramananda Roy. Yeah. Tell me more. Yes, tell me more. Yes, Sanatana Goswami also. Yeah, I was thinking Ramananda Roy. Yeah, he just kept asking questions, digging out. That's the open-ended questions. Does come from Lord Chaitanya, also used it. But yeah, tell me more. And so oftentimes in outreach, also in preaching, also you just have to do that with students. Like, tell me more. Yeah, what's going on, so that they just open up and tell us their bogus philosophy, so that we can defeat them. But actually, as we ask them questions, and as they actually start processing their own philosophy, something can click. Hopefully, sometimes it doesn't click, but sometimes it does click, and as they actually start verbalizing what they think they believe, and they're like, oh yeah, it doesn't sound that coherent actually. I never thought about it. Yeah, exactly, right. So we can give them the philosophy, we can show them the light, and everything else. But it's nice to ask them some questions, so that ask them questions about their own philosophy or whatever they're thinking, and then kind of gets them wheels turning a bit, and then they might actually be a little eager to hear about what Krishna consciousness is. And it's best when they ask questions to us. Then finally, so what is this about? And then you can go all out. Or you can ask another question, open question like, "Oh, what do you think?" And then they can say something. We'll keep going back and forth. All right, let's go to the verse 11. is the from summit. Chipniyatitapado vidhana Chipniyatitapado vidhana Satre Suvasudiptirtha Hidayamanat Satre Suvasudiptirthamana Yakarnanadim Purushasya Yato Bhavabdam Geharatim Chinatti Kashipniyat Kirtapado Bidhanat Satre Shuvasuribde Idyamana Yakarnanadim Purushasya Yato Bhava Pradam Geharatim Chinatti Kachipniyati Tapado Vidhanat Satre Shuvasuribde Idyamana Yakarnanadim Purushasya Yato Bhava Padam Geharatim Chinatti Sipnuyati Tapado Vidhana Satre Shivasurividhamana Yakarnanadim Purushasayato Padam Geharatim Chinatti Satre Shivasurividhamana Yakarnanadim Purushasayato Bhava Padam Geharatim Chinatti. We're to it together. Who is that man? Tripnuya, that can be satisfied. Tetapada, whose lotus feet are all the places of pilgrimage. Abhidhanat, from the talks of Satreshu in human society. Va, one who is. Surivi, by great devotees. Idyamanat, one who is so worshipped. Ya, who? Karna, Nadim, in the holes of the ears. Purushasya, of a man. Yata, entering. Bhava Pradhan, that which awards births and deaths. Yeharatim, family affection. Chinnati, is cut off. Translation together. Who in human society can be satisfied without hearing sufficient talk of the Lord, whose lotus feet are the sum total of all places of pilgrimage, and who is worshipped by great sages and demigods? Simply by entering the holes of one's ears. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Anyone like to read the purport? Who would like to read? Amrita, and then Nate. Go ahead.
Krsna-katha is so powerful that simply by entering into a person's ear, it can at once give deliverance from the bondage of family affection. Family affection is an illusory manifestation of the external energy, and it is the only impetus for all mundane activities. As long as there is mundane activity and the mind is absorbed in such engagement, one has to undergo the repetition of birth and death in the current material nations. People are most influenced by the mode of ignorance, and some are influenced by the passionate mode of material nature. And under the spell of these two modes, a living being is actuated by the material conception of life. The mundane qualities do not allow a living entity to understand his real position. The qualities of both ignorance and passion strongly bind one to the illusory bodily conception of the self. The best among the fools who are thus deluded are those who engage in altruistic activities under the spell of the material mode of passion. Bhagavad Gita, which is direct Krsna-katha, gives humanity the elementary lesson that the body is perishable and that the consciousness which is spread throughout the body is imperishable. The conscious being, the imperishable self, is eternally existent and cannot be killed under any circumstances, even after the dissolution of the body. Anyone who misunderstands this perishable body to be the self and who works for it in the name of sociology, politics, philanthropy, altruism, nationalism, or internationalism, under the false plea of the bodily conception of life, is certainly a fool and does not know the implications of reality and unreality. Some of them are above the modes of ignorance and passion and are situated in the mode of goodness. But mundane goodness is always contaminated by tinges of ignorance and passion. Mundane goodness can enlighten one that the body and the self are different, and one in goodness is concerned with the self and not the body. But due to being contaminated, those in mundane goodness cannot understand the real nature of the self as a person. Their impersonal conception of the self as distinct from the body keeps them in the mode of goodness within material nature, and unless they are attracted by Krsna-katha, they will never be liberated from the bondage of material existence. Krsna-katha is the only remedy for all people of the world because it can situate one in pure consciousness of the self and liberate one from material bondage. To preach Krsna-katha all over the world, as recommended by Lord Chaitanya, is the greatest missionary activity, and all sensible men and women of the world may join in this great movement started by Lord Chaitanya.
All right. This is the purport of the year, especially for Krishnas. But yeah, I just remember that somewhere in one of the chemistry buildings at UF, because these buildings are so old, it's probably from the 1800s or 1900s. There's a quote there. And it talks about how chemistry is really just unraveling the mystery of God or something like that, or the way God speaks or something like that. And so any of these sciences or, whatever Prabhupada's pointing out, sociology and politics, the other purpose where Prabhupada has said that how they can actually be used for glorifying God. But when the basis is just that we're these bodies and we're supposed to be here to enjoy and everything's based on that, then it's just, as Prabhupada very strongly calls family affection as an illusory manifestation of the external energy. So I was wondering, well, if family affection is an illusory manifestation of the external energy, then why is that Krishna establishes household life? Why is that there as one of the ashrams, the stages of life? What do you think? Vasika?
Because in the human condition, we're so attached to it that we have to be purified by dovetailing.
Mhm.
So and also it propagates the human generation so that more souls can come, take the human form of life and be purified to go back to Godhead.
Mhm.
but by actually participating in family life and dovetailing it in Krishna consciousness, using it for the service of Krishna to bring up the next generation of Krishna conscious children, that purifies those participants to go back to Godhead.
Sounds good. Any other thoughts? What's out there?
Also, I was thinking that it's an opportunity to practice serving Krishna, because in family life, like, you're serving each other, you're serving the kids, and oftentimes you see like a mother, the way she treats like her child is the closest thing we can get to the unconditional love that we're trying to develop with Krishna. That's a thought I have.
Yeah, I was just thinking that Prabhupada often uses the word for spiritual advancement as gradual. So, yeah, I guess what comes up is that Krishna has established these ashrams so that this spiritual practice can be accessible to everybody wherever they're at.
Yeah. In the impersonalist line of thought, especially the Mayavad line, spiritual life begins when you take sannyas. Like, that's when your spiritual life, that's when you become a bhakta. And you join the temple, and you actually give up your family life and take sannyas. I think Kalakanpur had mentioned this devotee in Austin. His father had done that actually in South India. He just gave up his family. They were older. The wife was older. And he gave up the family life and left the mother in care of their sons. And he just took sannyas, and he does not know where his father is. Just basically a social suicide, and just cut off all ties. So that's the Mayavad line. And as Karthikeya pointed out, it's not. It's like you go tell the students like, oh yeah, move into Krishna house, and wake up at 6 a.m. They're like, oh my God. And imagine going telling them, you got to take sannyas to start your spiritual life. Like, oh yeah, thanks. No thanks. So they give up coffee is like a lot for me. So what are talking about giving up your family and all your connections and just going somewhere and then studying the Vedanta Sutras for like 12 years, and then you realize Brahman is like, I forget it. So that's why the process of Krishna consciousness is simple. It's
Understanding that the only thing to renounce is the idea that something belongs to us in the first place.
Yeah, that is the
Once
key.
you understand that, then the whole world becomes as good as Vaikuntha.
Yeah.
Because it's for Krishna, it's not for me.
Yeah, I think Prabhupada said that to. I remember a lecture by Ronald March, and that Prabhupada said that it was one of his disciples, I don't know, who was like, I'm the most nothing. I'm the most fallen. And Prabhupada said, you're not the most anything. And then Prabhupada said further that, all you actually have to renounce this idea that anything is yours. You have to renounce that. Not that you renounce things. You renounce that this is for you. Yeah, thanks. But same for, especially in family life, there's so many things that come along with family life. So it can be hard to renounce the idea, especially when you work hard for something. It's really hard to renounce the idea that this is not really yours and it's actually given to you by Krishna. Especially if if it looks like you worked hard for it. So family life, you got to work hard for everything in family life. But and then when you raise the kids and become teenagers and think that you just don't know anything and you're just like the most stupid person in the world.
Role of a caretaker or custodian, you don't get bent out of shape when things are not like going the way they're going, but you do try your best because you're a caretaker of things, but you don't. Saves a lot of headache. Compared when people are like, well, it's mine, and they act in a cramp of like that possession. It's very, very different.
I feel like for most parents who are very attached to how the child has supposed to be raised up, and then generally the child ends up rebelling, and then they have to learn the hard way that actually you gotta let go of it. That's a good one.
If you always see yourself and everything you come in contact with as boga, and you'll never be bogus.
So there you go. Don't be bogus. Be boga. All right. But yeah, but family life or anything for that matter, even the professions that Prabhupada's talking about, and sometimes devotees really beat up philanthropy. They're like, it's mundane, Prabhu. And then they go work at 7-Eleven. And it's like, that's not mundane. But the idea is that devotees really like to beat up specific things. But the idea is that if you see something as separate from Krishna, then that's mundane, not that just philanthropy is mundane. So, and Prabhupada's point, that is his point that, yeah, that the fruitive mentality, fruitive work, and work that is then better than that is like, all right, let's try to help others to do more eating, mating, sleeping, and defending. Prabhupada's point is like, well, that's not really any better because, okay, it's a little, thinking a little bit beyond yourself, but it's still on that same bodily platform. So that's Prabhupada's point. And but at the same time, yesterday I was thinking about that Arjuna was actually killing people for Krishna. It's pretty heavy, and the whole the setup of the Bhagavad Gita is that Krishna is instructing him to fight for Dharma, and one can question, like how is it that he got this whole talk about bhakti yoga and that how is he able to perform this service of being a warrior while after hearing this philosophy of Krishna consciousness? Because one spiritual life, often people think like, oh, you meditate, and that's what Arjuna was saying in the beginning. I just want to go to the forest, be a sannyasi, and just give up and meditate. And Arjuna and Krishna was like, no, one is not a sannyasi who does not light the fire, and so forth. And so with Arjuna, his service was to fight. And I mean, and he was killing people, and not just any people. He was actually killing his teacher, his grandfather, and so forth. It's pretty heavy. But so it's like Krishna's giving almost an extreme example that actually when you're in the right consciousness, you can perform anything for Krishna's service. And so be it, working at anywhere, I don't know, different jobs that people can have in this world, be an IT person or be a receptionist or be a philanthropist for that matter. One can actually do those things if one sees everything in relation to Krishna and doesn't see those things as separate from Krishna. And the same principle applies to family life. One has to develop that vision to see it in relationship to Krishna. And and always be conscious of it. And for that, that's why the process of hearing and chanting is there, because that's what really invokes or revokes our original Krishna consciousness that, yeah, this is actually Krishna's. And let me act in such a way on the level of the soul that, yeah, I act in such a way that this is actually Krishna's. And it's one can hear it theoretically and we can try to understand, we're not these bodies, everything belongs to Krishna. But yeah, just like anything, it takes time and practice, and as Karthikeya says, it's a gradual process. So yeah, the daily practice of japa and hearing something, and during the ashram, we have the Bhagavatam class, we have the japa time, but when we're in our own household lives, then yeah, that's where we can do. I think somebody pointed out that it's also an ashram. It's also space for training, actually. So one trains themselves how to do different activities, for Krishna. And I think in the endangered species or maybe somewhere else, Kalakan Prue mentions how different reasons to get married. And it's not because I'm bored or I like somebody. There has to be stronger reasons than that. There's strong reasons like, I want to have, at this point, I am ready for a profession or ready for a family to raise kids. And Grihastha life means actually more responsibility than the brahmachari life that we have in the ashrams. It's actually, more responsibility. There's more enjoyment. You get all kinds of prasadam, I guess, maybe. but but there's definitely more responsibility, as those famous words, with more power comes great responsibility, right? From Spider-Man. The same thing applies to Grihastha life. But yeah, with great powers come great responsibility. And so that's the purpose for anything, for a profession or family life, that one actually has to see everything in relation to Krishna. And even I was thinking about Prabhupada's father. Prabhupada's father was a cloth merchant, and Prabhupada talks about how even though that was his business, but he said that his real business was actually worshiping Radha and Krishna. So he would do his run his shop, and he'd come back, and the evenings he would just worship the deities and make offerings and so forth. So you could see his heart was actually in serving Krishna. And yeah, we might have some profession and we do it for Krishna, but our heart should be for serving Krishna, for hearing about Krishna. And that's why ashram life is best for that, because then we train ourselves, we get affinity to hearing about Krishna. Because yeah, when family life comes, everything gets gets a little harder, or there's a lot of other distractions that can happen, right? And but what are some benefits of household life? You say, what do you think? Money. There you go. Yeah, actually, you make some money, and 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 yeah, basically helps you sustain yourself so that you can just be stable and practice Krishna consciousness and not have to worry about money all the time. And another thing with money is that you also learn how to be detached from money, because when money comes, it also goes out, and you see that. And one good way for householders to be detached from money is then to actually give it in charity. That's one of the pillars of Grihastha life, to just give it in charity to the other ashrams, actually, because the only ashram that makes money is the Grihasthas. And the Vanaprasthas, sannyasis don't make money, the brahmacharis don't make money. And so the Grihastha is supposed to support the other ashrams. So yeah, you give in charity for preaching and so forth. So yeah, money, what other benefits? Food?
Yeah, I was thinking that you learn a lot of selflessness, because when you're in the ashram here, like, you may come and think, okay, like, this is good for me. I need to develop myself, and like, this is like a great opportunity for me to focus on myself and acquire skills and things like this. But then in that ashram is you get the opportunity to purify parts of yourself that you don't experience in other relationships in the ashram. It's like a mirror showing you parts of yourself that you can actually also work.
Yeah.
Service. Because you're pulling by yourself, with two people, there's a sense of synergy.
You can have a home that you turn into like a temple, like a sanctuary. And you can have wonderful home programs where devotees can have a little bit more of like an intimate feel experience. And like this home we were just at, Madhava Prabhu's place, is beautiful in the nature. And then you're giving that opportunity for devotees to come and do like a retreat like that is really amazing. And yeah, that's what I thought.
Thoughts. And
Also, for the majority of young people, after they get their training, it's safe. It's a safe way to continue your Krishna consciousness without being driven mad by certain desires.
Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he mentions in his book Madhurya Kadambini, and he wrote that in the 1700s, I believe. And but it talks about how when one joins Krishna consciousness, what they go through, and it's still accurate hundreds of years later. And when one joins initially, there's this initial enthusiasm, and you remember the name for that? Utsamai, right? Mai is Utsa. It's like, yeah, gonna be a pure devotee 2 weeks. Yes, brahmachari forever. Yep. There's a lot of excitement. Like, And there was this one devotee. it's funny how the things we think when we were first starting to do japa. He was thinking like, yeah, I'm doing japa, and just in 2 weeks I'll be able to see this super soul in between each atom. So he was thinking like that. He was actually thinking that, and so yeah, it's a lot of a lot of excitement, right? And then there's the Jalatarangani. I think that it goes up and down. They're like, oh, I'm such a fallen devotee. And then next they're like, I'm gonna take sannyas and I'm gonna chant 64 rounds every day. Next they're like, oh, I don't know. Like up and down. There are different stages that the devotee goes through, and then it goes to it's like the sign where it kind of finally kind of evens out, and then it goes to anartha nivritti, like actually gonna work on my anarthas. And so grihastha life is that safe haven where one doesn't have, well, at least shouldn't have those ups and downs too much, but just steadily and gradually, making gradual progress in spiritual life. That's the whole purpose of household life, to give that safe space. And but it is very easy to get complacent in household life. So that's why it's important to have sangha with other devotees, to keep hearing and chanting, which is the basis of all these ashrams or whatever you do, to just keep hearing and chanting. I always like that story. Mahatma Prabhu said that he was driving somewhere really far, like a long drive. So he just started playing Prabhupada's lectures, and he started going through all his lectures. And initially, Prabhupada talks about the mudas and fallen and this, that, and Mahatma was like, yeah, these foolish people are. And after like a 15-hour drive, he's like, oh, he's talking about me. I'm the Muda here. Because the more you hear actually what the Muda is doing, like, oh yeah, I do this. And so initially we think it's them, it's actually us. So yeah, so we gotta do some is keep hearing, and it keeps waking us up. So yeah. All right, I guess we'll stop here. Any other last comments or thoughts before we go for breakfast?
Experience has been with many devotees that have lived in an ashram, that have been brahmacharis, whether in saffron or not, but that have spent some time in the ashram, is that it's always the best time of their life. Like,
yeah,
I know, like, while we're in here, we might think about like, yeah, what we want next, the next step, this and that, but actually, it's like across the board, devotees that have lived in ashrams while they've been single for some time, however long it may be, many of them look back and say that was the best time of my life.
Yeah, when it's the condition of the human mind to just hanker about something else in the future, right? And when you're in the ashram, you think like, oh, I want to get married, and it's gonna be so much fun. We're gonna frolic in the pastures and run around trees, and it'll be so much fun. And then you get a mortgage after that when you get married. And you're like, this is not fun. I don't want to pay a mortgage or whatever else that one has to do. Yeah, insurance. Yeah, my insurance in the house keeps getting canceled. Damn it. Uh, but yeah, it's true. So it's best is wherever you're at, appreciate that. This the brahmacharya ashram, and of course even household life, you appreciate that, and so forth. That's the best way to live one's life. Otherwise, one's always going to be grumpy.
One last thought for me is that take advantage of your brahmachari life and really learn the principles, because married life will be a lot easier.
Yeah.
And if you don't really get the principles down and learn to control your mind and senses to whatever degree you can while you're in the ashram, it'll make it a lot easier.
All right, going to Ashra Bhagavatam Ki. I guess before we go to the prasadam prayers, had a quick. Could you turn off the